All right, everyone. Now let's go ahead and move to APR service. So our next tests are going to check that our APR service is calculating the APR within the valid expected range when we pass in a social security number. Now, currently, if you look at our folders in our actual project and open up the services, you will find APR service, which is empty. This is our own service. And you have the credit score service. Now, keep in mind that the credit score service is a third-party service. And whenever you invoke the credit score service, it presents some sort of a charge also. Like we have to, pay some amount to get the credit score provided with the actual score or provided the actual SSN. So this is a third-party service. We don't have control over it. We can't really change the code. Keep in mind that it's not really invoking the production URL, because that will be just weird if you just invoke the production. They have set up some sort of so this credit score service, third-party service, they have already set up some sort of a test or a QA URL for us, but still it's it does incur some sort of a charge for us to invoke it. All right, I know that I'm making things up, but we're just trying to say that this is a third-party service. We can't really change it. Okay. And it does take some time to get the results back, the credit score back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my APR service test. And the first test that we are looking to write is that the APR service, which is going to be calculating the interest rate we can give it to the client based on the social security number. And the first test is going to say that the interest rate is within expected range. So they're going to provide the social security number and we're going to calculate the interest rate. But the difficult part for this is if this is our APR service, right? If this is our service. We control this. The bank is using this, or bank is creating this. You provide the SSN, and then what it does is it makes a call to a credit score service. So this is a credit score service. This is a third-party service, credit score service. And it sends in the SSN, the social security number. And the credit score service returns back some sort of a score. So we can say that if the score is, let's say, greater than 650, then we will give it like an APR between 1 and 3 interest rate. If it is less than 650 credit score, then we will give them like a high APR, which can be between like maybe 5 and 10 or so on. Okay. But we have to first create the APR service because that is our own service that we need to create. And then we have to make sure that we are calling the credit score service. And then the credit score is going to return some sort of a credit score for that user based on the social security number. And then the APR service can give you some sort of an APR based on the credit score is receiving. So this is kind of like the thing that we are trying to create. This is the flow that we're trying to create. Okay. So let's begin with the APR service test. Now I'm going to write the test over here. Let's say test. And we can call this anything. So we can call this APR is within expected range for valid SSN. Now the valid SSN part over here can mean different things. Valid SSN means that this SSN, well, first of all, is valid in the format, meaning it is, 3 digits dash 2 digits dash 4 digits, but it also does have a credit score. Sometimes, you do have a valid SSN, but they won't really have any credit score. Like if your child has some sort of SSN, then they may not have any credit score. So over here, I know that we're calling it valid, but valid over here means that this particular SSN does have some sort of a score also, like a credit score. And since it will have some sort of a credit score, we will be able to provide the APR rates to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just create an SSN. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that's our SSN number. Okay. And next, we can talk about the expected kind of like the range that we are expecting. I mean, for this particular SSN, and we can say that this is a good SSN. So this is a SSN with credit score, which is, let's say, greater than whatever, 650 or something. So what will be the expected range? Expected APR range. Okay, because it can be based on some other factors also. All right, so that's why we are using the range part of it. So I'm going to say 1.0 till 3.0. So that is kind of like the expected range. Next, we're going to create the APR service. So APR service equals to APR service, which we don't have. And APR service depends on the credit score service. So I can say credit score service and pass in the credit score service. All right. Next, we're going to call APR service dot get APR, pass in the APR, pass in the social security number. There we go. And yeah, it will be like, try and await and all that. So we can use that. Try and await. It's going to return us something, which is going to be APR. So APR we're going to get back. None of this is going to compile because we don't really have the APR service, by the way, right? But we're just typing code. We know it's not going to compile. We're just typing the code. And then we can go ahead and perform this. Expect the expected range dot contains the APR. So that's what we are trying to look at. Whatever the APR is being returned when we pass in this social security number, then it is going to return us APR after getting the credit score from a third-party service. We get the APR and the APR is within the range. Now, if I try to build this, it's not going to work because there is no such thing as APR service. So that will be our first thing that we need to create the APR service. So I can go to the APR service and try to construct the APR. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and over here say APR service. It does have a dependency on credit score service. So I'll say credit score service. And we will have a function called getAPR, SSN, string, async, and then throws, and then it's going to return double. Okay. And over here, now we have to, first of all, get the credit score using the credit score service. This is a third-party service. This is a third-party service. Okay. So how do we get that? Well, we call credit score service dot get credit score SSN. We pass in the SSN. We get something back, credit score back. There we go. And this is a async function. Else, we can throw some error, right? So right now, I'm just going to go ahead and say kind of like fatal error, but don't do that. I mean, we will have to do something over here. And then once you get that, the credit score, then you can unwrap it. You can go ahead and get the score. Score equals to credit score dot score. If score is greater than 650, then we can go ahead and return some sort of like a random thing, right? We can say random, like this particular range. Else, we can also do that, but this will be a little bit of a different range. Let's say it's from 6 to 10. Okay. All right. Now, what else is going on? We are returning over here. Else, well, else we can't really do anything. So over here, basically no credit score found. So I can go ahead and throw the error. I can say credit score service error dot no credit score found. And I think we can throw the same exact error over here also if there is no credit score found. All right. And the way that we will implement the credit score service error is just an enum. So we'll say credit score service error, localized error. Okay. And we can say no credit score found. And then we can provide some sort of an implementation for the error description property. Okay. So now we have the APR service. It does take into a dependency, which is credit score service. It does have a single function called getAPR. It invokes a service, which is a credit score service. Basically, it goes across the wire. Basically, it's a networking call. If you look over here, the credit score service is actually going to make this call. All right. We get the credit score. If the credit score is greater than 650, then we give you some random rates. And I'm just going to do this random because there can be some other factors that are responsible for getting the actual APR rates. But I'm just going to give you this like random, okay? And this particular range is for bad credit score. Okay, so now if we go back to our test, and if we build it, let's see what's going on over here. APR service.getAPR. So let's check it out. The APR service.getAPR is a async function. So we should be using try catch, but we are not really using anything else over here. All right. So we can say over here throws. So it can basically throw an exception. Let's go ahead and build it. Let's see what happens if we run this. Okay. So over here we are saying, oh, okay, so it has to be async also because we're doing an await in this function. Okay, so we're going to run this test. Now, if you have noticed, this test has some big issues. All right. There is a possibility that, first of all, it may pass. But keep in mind that when we are using APR service, we are passing the actual implementation, the actual thing, the concrete class, credit score service. The credit score service is a third-party service. There is a possibility that that third-party service is down. There's a possibility that the call is just too slow. And we're trying to write a unit test for it. Okay, so we'll see. And also, if you look at the code over here, we don't really know what kind of result it's going to get back. Okay, so maybe for the URL that we're passing, it's gonna send you the correct result, which in this case it did. But if we are using the credit score service and they remove this dummy social security number, then our test will start failing. So there's a lot of issues going on over here. Is what if there is no internet connection? What will happen to the credit score survey? It's not going to work. What if they remove this? Maybe on the server side, it is, it is using this particular dummy value, but what if they remove it? I mean, that's not going to work either, right? So that's a couple of things. Also, our test is a little bit slow because it is making a call, this networking call, and you shouldn't really be making these networking calls because it is going to make your stuff slow. And especially because this is out of process and also an unmanaged dependency, which basically means that we don't control this. It's not like I can run a server and host credit score service on that server. This is something like a payment gateway. It is controlled by some other company, and we're just using their API. Okay? So this is an unmanaged dependency. Why is it unmanaged? Well, it's unmanaged because we don't really know what's going to happen. There are some other parties that might be observing this particular dependency, and it might be even changing. They might switch the social security numbers. They might actually return you very different, different kind of credit score based on something completely different. So what we want to do is we want to control this part. And also this is networking call. So anytime you're doing a networking call, it is going to make your services slow. So we want to avoid all of that stuff. Because the only thing that we're trying to check right now is when you get this credit score from wherever, then we are able to calculate the actual APR. That's what we are doing. So one way that we can do that is by creating a stub, and the stub can return you some predefined response, which means that if you pass in this social security number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, then it will always return you a credit score which is like 700. Or when you pass in a social security number which is something different, 555, 55, 6655, then in those cases it can return you a social credit score which is much lower, like maybe it's like 550. And then you can check the different ranges. All right. So having that information, in the next lecture, we'll be looking at that how we can switch this actual credit score service with a mock or a stub that can return us predefined responses. So we're going to go and learn that in the next lecture.